تو باش نحكيو على اللب نتاع المواضيع نتاع السنتر دو كالكول الخوارزمي. باش نحكيو على تو سكي انفراستركتور توا سي تري امبورطون جو بونس. معنا مستشار سيد وزير التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي بروفيسور يوسف بن حليمه. باهي نقول لكم جوست باش يقدم روحه هو، مي هو اللي لاهي تو سكي كلاود de manière sur le plan national et sectoriel. Pour le secteur de l'enseignement supérieur et la recherche scientifique. Donc, j'ai session مرحبا بكم les intervenants الكل، ونعطي الكلمة لسي يوسف بن حليمة. تفضل سي يوسف.
مرحبا بكم الناس الكل. إذا كنتوا في حصة مع المستقبل باش نرجعكم للحاضر توا. دونك الواقع هذا ما شاء الله عليهم الاولاد. دونك الجينيراسيون الجديده هذه اللي طالعه، دونك هي بطبيعه الحال باش تمثل تونس احسن تمثيل ان شاء الله، وهما المستقبل، هما اللي نعملوا عليهم باش نطوروا بلادنا. به الحصه هذه جايه اللي باش نحكيو فيها باش تتمحور حول البنيه التحتيه. دونك وزاره التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي وعن طريق بطبيعة الحال مركز الحساب الخوارزمي تقوم بعمل دؤوب باش تحسن من البنية التحتية. دونك العمل بدا من قبل، معناتها هو عمل متواصل. خممنا باش نعملوا سحابة للقطاع، والسحابة هذه بطبيعة الحال وفرنا لها الاعتمادات، والاعتمادات باش تكون ديما متواصلة باش نحسنوها. دونك الاولاد في المركز الحساب الخوارزمي قاموا بعمل باش عمل كبير برشا باش تحصلنا اليوم على الخصائص التقنيه للسحابه هذه. وبطبيعه الحال في القريب باش يتم كما عملنا في السيستم دانفورماسيون، عملنا استشاره وطنيه. دونك كيف باش نعملوا استشاره قريبا، واللي هي على الأقل باش يكون الدعامة نتاع السحاب في قطاع التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي. نحب نشكر كيما الناس الكل، نشكر سوسن وسي يوسف معناتها اللي اتاحوا لي الفرصة باش نعمل لا موديراسيون نتاع الحصة هذه. عندنا برشا ضيوف، عندنا نبداو يظهر لي ما نجمتش لم تتمكن من الحضور السيدة الدكتورة ولاء تركي، وهي مستشارة. تفضل. الكوفي بريك بعد الدكتورة ولاء تركي هي مستشارة وزير تقنية الاتصال، ما تمكنتش من الحضور معنا يظهر لي على خاطر كوفيد. دونك نتمنى لها الشفاء. نحب نستدعى السيد يوسف ترمان ويظهر لي باش يعوضوا السيد شهر زيود من سي يوسف. تجيب حذانا ما يسهلش. انت وسي شاهر، اي علاش لا. سي شاهر زيود هو معناتها من وزاره التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي في فلسطين الحبيبه. دونك سي شاهر تو يعرف بنفسه من بعد. سي يوسف ترمان يحب يعطي كلمه صغيره قبل ما.
السلام عليكم. انا وعدتكم امبارح انه اسرن تكون موجوده بكل الجلسات، بس يبدو انه الاثراء الجلسات منكم اروع بكثير من انه احنا نثريها. هاي اولا. ثانيا حتى لغرض انه نستفيد من الوقت، انا عندي مداخلتين اليوم، واحده في موضوع استراتيجيه اسرن في موضوع engagement science engagement وساينس دبلوماسي، والجلسه والكلمه الثانيه بتتعلق في موضوع هل ضروره العرب اوبن ساينس كلاود. فهذول الاثنين انا ان شاء الله بحكيهم في الختام من باب انه نخلي الوقت يكون متاح اكثر للمتحدثين. وشكرا، انا حكون مستمع وبتشرف اني اسمع. شكرا لك.
مرحبا بك يا عايشه. لازم اشكر بعد الجلسه. نعم، اسمي على اسمك سيد يوسف. معنا ايضا الاستاذ سليم رخيص، دونك من المدرسه العليا للاتصالات بتونس تابعه جامعه قرطاج. دونك وسيد سليم مختص في السلامه. دونك نرحبوا بك. زاد باش يكون بحذانا السيد عبد الحكيم الشتاوي من مركز الحساب الخوارزمي. عبد الحكيم عنده خبرة كبيرة في مركز الحساب، يمكن هو أقدم واحد في المركز ما شاء الله عليه. وباش يكون معنا عن بعد نطلبوا من التقنيين باش يحضروا لنا الاتصال السيد إريكو بورتو، دونك وهو مستشار تكنولوجيا المعلومات في منظمة ASREN. به نبداو بالسيد بالمداخله نتاع السيد شاهر زيود، واللي هو المدير العام للمديريه العامه للتنميه والبحث العلمي في وزاره التعليم العالي والبحث العلمي في فلسطين الحبيبه، وهو ايضا رئيس قسم هندسه البناء والبيئه وقسم الهندسه المدنيه والهياكل المستدامه في جامعه فلسطين التقنيه. وتخصصه تخصصه بطبيعة الحال في التخصص البحثي في تطوير منهجيات وأدوات لحماية البيئة مهمة جدا، والموارد المائية أيضا. دونك ونعرفوا الشح المائي اللي تعيشه معظم البلدان، وتغطي هذه الاهتمامات مجالات البحث المتعلقة بالهندسة المدنية والبحوث البيئية، مثل التغيرات المناخية والسمارت سيتيز المدن الذكية والبنية التحتية المتكاملة، وتلوث الهواء وإدارة النفايات الصلبة والمياه الجوفية وغيره من البحوث، تكنولوجيا النانو أيضا وجودة المياه وغيرها من البحوث. سي شاهر عندك برزنتيشن باش تقدمها؟
I need the pointer.
عندك البوينتر؟ You can switch to English if you want.
Okay, yes. Like this. Okay, and this.
This one? Yeah, left, right.
Okay.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for introducing me, and many thanks for giving me this opportunity to present my work at this important workshop. My topic is related to mapping and visualizing the Arab region's contribution to global environmental research through open access publishing. First, we have selected environmental research field because environmental issues in the Arab world are top priorities at the agenda of policymakers and researchers. This is because the environment in the Arab region is characterized by its harsh and vulnerability to climate change impacts. Therefore, much efforts are devoted by researchers to address and solving environmental problems. Second, this analysis will provide us with a clear picture about the performance of Arab researchers in different fields of science. The focus will be on environmental issues. We all know that the benefits of open access research are well documented. First, open access provides access to knowledge, free availability. Open access receiving higher citation counts, which are considered as benefits to authors and institutions. Furthermore, open access offers wider collaboration among researchers and institutions and offers a greater reach and readership. According to a survey conducted by the Nature Journal, a well-known journal, with respect to the benefits of open access publishing, they have found that open access publications receive citation 1.6 more times than non-open access documents. Open access documents receive downloads 4 times more than non-open access articles. In addition to the greater impact of the open access publications, 2.5 more times attentions compared to non-open access, 1.9 more news mentions, and 1.2 more policy mentions than non-open access. In summary, open access can benefiting readers without access to publications and authors of publications. With respect to authors, it's clear that metrics such as mentions, impacts, and citation counts are becoming very important in the performance evaluation of scientists, researchers, and institutions. Okay, in summary, the open access is gaining foothold in the publishing world. Despite that, it is deepening the inequality with respect to sharing scientific advances between developing and developed countries, which are having much financial resources to support their open access activities. While in its origin, the open access should promote equal opportunities for researchers worldwide. In the Arab world, as a case study, Arab world can be considered as a major producer of scientific information, mainly in the recent periods, and witnessed a significant increase in the production of open access knowledge content. We assume these assumptions, and we will check this assumption during this analysis. The major objectives of this analysis, it will trace the growth and development of environmental research from the Arab world and is disseminated through open access publishing. We will explore, extract, and analyze different bibliometric indicators, quantitative and qualitative ones associated with these publications, and we will conduct comparative analysis for these indicators with respect to open access and non-open access publications. The methodology, the major steps of the methodology, we use Scopus database, a well-known literature database at the global level, as a source of information. Within Scopus database, there are 4 major subject areas: health sciences, life sciences, physical sciences, and social sciences. We selected, for the purpose of our analysis, physical sciences, and within this major subject area, we have selected environmental science. We conduct a search for environmental science at the global level for a period extended from 2011 to 2021. We have excluded 2022 year because it is still open for new publications. The result, we have more than 2 million documents at the global level in environmental research. We limit the search for articles type of documents because we know that there are different types of documents, such as articles, review articles, conference papers, book chapters. Our analysis is limited to articles, and the figure became 1,600,000 articles at the global level, representing 76.6% from the whole publications in environmental science at the global level. Furthermore, we limit the search to open access at the global level and non-open access. The figure became about 600,000 articles at the global levels published as open access in environmental science, representing a ratio of 36.1. It is followed by limiting the search for articles related to environmental science and published by researchers from the Arab world. The result, about 57,000 documents published by researchers from the Arab world, open access and non-open access, which represents 3.6%. The portion of Arab world in environmental science represents 3.6%. I believe this is a good ratio compared to other fields of science. It means that researchers from the Arab world who are working in environmental fields are doing better than other fields because the ratio is nearly 1%. The productivity of Arab world in all fields of science is around 1%. They are doing better in environmental research. The last step, we categorize these articles into non-open access and open access. The figure became about 18,000 articles published from the Arab world in environmental sciences, representing 3.28%. A good indicator we have found that the ratio of open access articles from the Arab world is 32.7% from the total portion of the Arab world. This figure is nearly same the global average. This indicates that open access module is gaining much attention in the Arab world because the figure is nearly same to the global average. It is followed by conducting a bibliometric analysis to explore the yearly evolution of publications from the Arab world, most productive countries, most productive institutions, and comparative analysis. In parallel, we conducted a visualization mapping to explore the collaboration trends between Arab countries and other countries in environmental fields published as open access, co-citation analysis and citation analysis, and lastly, content analysis to explore the trends of environmental research in the Arab world. The major results and discussion. Table 1 shows the productivity of Arab countries in environmental fields as open access. There are 20 Arab countries with different productivity figures. Saudi Arabia topping the list, 5,700 documents published in environmental science as open access documents, represents 30.2% from the Arab world, the most productive countries, Saudi Arabia. It is followed by Egypt, Iraq, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria. Table 2 shows the productivity of Arab world for publications as non-open access. Egypt topping the list with a ratio of 27.5%, followed by Saudi Arabia, Tunisia, Algeria, Iraq. To be fair in this analysis, we utilized an adjustment index. This index links the GDP of the country, the number of populations, and the productivity. This is the formula of the adjustment index. It is equal total number of publications for the country divided by GDP per capita of the country, and the GDP per capita of the country is the total GDP divided by the population of each country. This is essential to be neutral with respect to ranking countries according to its GDP and welfare. The source of information regarding population size and total GDP was from the World Bank data. By making this adjustment, we noticed differences in ranking. Saudi Arabia was topping the list, and it becomes rank 7 in the 7th place. Egypt in the 1st place, Iraq in the 2nd place, Morocco in the 3rd place, Tunisia 5th place, Algeria 4, and so on. Table 4 and Table 5 shows the productivity of publications related to environmental fields at global levels. For open access, United States topping the list with about 23.1, followed by China and United Kingdom. Most productive countries as open access are Western countries. The same productivity of a global for non-open access, China topping the list, followed by United States, India, Germany, and so on. This figure presents the yearly evolution of publications in environmental fields from the Arab world, open access and non-open access. The blue one is related to open access, and the orange one is related to non-open access. The outcomes of this figure and table is very important. We show here the yearly evaluation during the period of study from 2011 to 2021. Open access in year 2011, only 320 documents. Non-open access about 2,000 documents. Total 2,100, and the ratio of open access with respect to total is 14.9. We will notice that the trend of open access in environmental science is increasing with time. 14, 19, 18, 24, 21, some fluctuations, 23, 27, 33, and lastly, 45% in 2021. This gives a good indicator that about half publications from the Arab world in 2021, about half is open access publications. This indicates that open access getting much attention in the Arab world because of its importance. These figures represent the visualization mapping of collaboration among countries, benefiting from the capabilities of VOS viewer software. This figure categorizes countries to different clusters. The group of countries in each cluster indicates that they are collaborated much, they are working more closely together. This is the first indicator. The second indicator, the volume of the circle, indicates the productivity of each country. Larger circle, larger contributed country. The third indicator is the links between countries. The thicker link indicates much collaborated and research collaboration between the countries. For example, the thicker link is between Saudi Arabia and Egypt. There are high links of collaboration between Saudi Arabia and Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and Saudi Arabia and the United States. There are three clusters. The blue one if we take as an example, it shows the North African Arab countries, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, Lebanon, which are having strong links of research collaboration with France. We chose the outcomes of this analysis using density visualization map of country collaboration. The red color indicates the most prolific countries, such as Saudi Arabia and Egypt. It is followed by Iraq, Morocco, Tunisia, and so on. This map shows the keyword co-occurrence analysis, which benefit for estimating the hot topics of environmental research in the Arab world. It categorized the contents into 3 clusters. Each cluster is belong to a specific theme or subjects. For example, the red ones are related to water management, air pollution, water equality, and sustainability issues. The green one is related to the environmental impacts, mainly COVID-19 impacts on the environment. We all know that COVID-19 have positive and negative impacts on the environment. For the positive impacts during the period of COVID-19, the air pollution levels due to halting movement activities and industrial activities, the air pollution levels are downing. But in the same time, the negative impacts, it is found, different studies found that regions with high rates of air pollution, they have found that high levels of mortality due to air pollution and COVID-19. The third one is related to ecosystems and the impacts of environmental issues on the ecosystems. Table 7 shows the top productive institutions from the Arab world utilizing open access module. King Saud University topping the list with a ratio of 6.62, followed by King Abdulaziz University, King Abdullah University. Most institutions, prolific institutions, are from Saudi Arabia and Egypt. The top productive sources were Arab world, disseminating the outcomes of their research in environmental fields, was sustainability journals, Switzerland, with a ratio about 9%, International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, and Water, Switzerland. Most journals belong to MDBI publisher. The Arab world researchers are active in publishing their outcomes in these journals. We conduct a comparative analysis between the 2 most productive countries in the Arab world, Saudi Arabia and Egypt, with the 2 major countries in the Middle East region, Turkey and Iran. Okay, for Saudi Arabia, at the global level, Saudi Arabia has about 15,000 documents. It represents 0.93% all types of publications, open and non-open access. Egypt, 15,000, Turkey, 25,000, Iran, 40,000. Saudi Arabia, about 1%, which is a general figure for Arab world. Egypt, the same, but Turkey is doing better. Iran is doing better than all. With respect to open access, we saw that Saudi Arabia is topping the 4th country with a ratio of 38.4%, followed by Egypt, Turkey, and Iran. With respect to collaborations, the same performance for all countries. This is in general a comparative analysis between the major contributors in the Arab world and the region. With respect to collaboration, the fourth country shows the same performance, good links between these countries and Western countries. The same with respect to trends or hot topics. In general, the environmental issues in the region, in the Arab world, and Turkey and Iran are the same. This figure represents the accumulative of citation for open access and non-open access. We believe that the trends of citations for open access will increase by the time because the activities or practices of open access in the Arab world witnessed an increase in the last period, and publications need much time to be cited. Within the time, I believe the trend will be more positive for open access with respect to citation. The major conclusions of this analysis: first, open access publishing practices in the Arab world is nearly like the global average. There are differences among Arab countries with respect to open access practices, depend mainly on number of populations of each country, which mean a large number of researchers and scientists, wealth of country, scientific experience and infrastructure. Regional initiatives should be established to promote open access in our region, and much regional research collaboration is required. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this presentation. This shows the importance of statistics, and maybe we can build our decision based on those statistics. And I would like to ask for ASREN to maybe to create dashboards for each country, to have a live, maybe live statistics and the live ranking in terms of open access, and maybe crossing those data with the infrastructure and maybe other data coming from these country, like you did with the population, the GDP, and this is so. This presentation was planned yesterday, and we will go now to see things for the infrastructure and the security. And I will ask Mr. Slim His to come and present his work. This, ask for this.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Yusuf, for the introduction. First of all, I would like to thank Mrs. Sausan Krishan for the invitation. Thank you to all the staff from the Khawarizmi Computing Center and ASREN for the nice organization of this successful event. Today I will speak about active defense and cyber deception in network security. My name is Slim Khis. I'm professor from the SUBCOM Higher School of Communication of Tunis, University of Carthage. So today, due to the wide increase of network interconnections and the high uses of communication technology, we are faced to the increase of network attacks. Here is a big picture of the most occurring attacks. We can face the distributed denial of service that exhaust network and system resources and involve the coordination of different compromised machines together to attack the same target. malware which propagate autonomously on the network. Malware is malicious software. And these types of malware can create unauthorized effect on the target machines. Man in the middle, by which attackers eavesdrop on weak communication channels. SQL injection, which consists in injecting queries to compromise data via vulnerable forms and fields. Zero-day exploit by exploiting unknown vulnerabilities and creating undetectable attacks until the vendors detect the vulnerability and release the patches. Insider threats by which malicious employees abuse of the trust that we give to them and use their authorization to create unauthorized effect. Ransomware, which are types of malware that propagates compromised data, crypt data, and ask for ransoms to give the decryption key. Otherwise, the private data will be released publicly or ever destroyed if the target will not pay for ransoms. And phishing attacks, which is a type of social engineering that steals confidential data such as credit card numbers. And finally, attacks on the Internet of Things infrastructure that use lightweight devices, which unfortunately use weak security techniques that are sometimes easily compromised. Recent statistics have shown that during the pandemic period, we have shown an increase of the network attacks. Here the statistics shown by judge.com show that we have seen an increase of 300% during the pandemic period. The ransomware in 2021, the ransomware industry is worth $14 billion. And Google has indicated that in January 2021, 2 million phishing websites were detected, and this number has increased by 27% with respect to the previous year. So no one can deny that attacks are continuing to increase, and technically this is due to the complexity and sophistication of the attacks. So I try to enumerate the characteristics of these attacks that make them challenging to detect and to counterattack. First of all, attacks are automated, can be remotely executed, are able to propagate autonomously, rapidly. They are self-propagating. They are disruptive. They encrypt data. They block access to data. They can physically damage the assets. Imagine an attack on a critical infrastructure that can damage programming logic controller, for example. Attacks also use artificial intelligence. They are becoming smart. They are able to converge rapidly. They generate the minimum possible alerts when they propagate. They are large-scaled, coordinated. They are capable of shifting from on-the-premise environment to the cloud environment easily. They can target critical infrastructure, e-health infrastructure, smart grid, power plants. They are highly sophisticated. They impact the supply chain. They are polymorphic and metamorphic. They change from one compromised machine to another. Some malware completely rewrite themselves, and therefore they become undetectable by the current configured patterns. And we are now facing new types of offered services to anyone who will pay. We are seeing ransomware as a service, attack as a service, brute force as a service, and so on. To face these attacks, security engineers and researchers try to propose many types of security measures. Conventional security measures include firewalls to control access between subnetworks, identity and access management, antivirus and anti-malware software, solutions that protect application, web, and emails, behavior analytics mechanism that detect and prevent intrusion by analyzing the behavior of users. That allows prevention system to prevent against exfiltration of data, of sensitive data. Protection of mobile devices, which contain also sensitive data. Security information and event management, which collect information about security alerts and events in a centralized server, do the necessary correlation and provide a clear overview of the security state of the whole network. Security orchestration and automation and response to automate the response and reduce to the maximum possible the loss when security attack is detected. All of these measures can be organized according to different models. One of the widely used model is defense in depth, where we put the most critical data in the center and try to protect it through different layers of security. So if one layer become weak, the other layer can back up it, and the attack has to penetrate through the different layer to reach the critical resources. However, this approach has shown to be weak against infiltration. It can generate an overwhelming number of false positive alerts. It has also difficulty in protecting against APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, which exploit zero-day vulnerabilities. So in particular, we can notice that there is a continuous battle between hackers and cyber defenders. Why we always, as cyber defender, try to make sure that everything is working perfectly, and try to reduce to the maximum possible the potential vulnerabilities. However, an attacker has simply to locate one available vulnerability and succeed in breaching the defense. So, faced to this asymmetry, we cannot continue using the conventional security measures. And here comes the concept of defensive deception. So defensive deception comes to rebalance this asymmetric for the cyber defender. So here we come with two concepts, active defense, which consists in the use of limited offensive action and counterattacks to deny contested area or possession to the enemy. We use proactive, anticipatory, and reactionary action against attackers. And among the active defense, we found the cyber deception, which consists in deceiving attackers to provide a better defense. The deception works by confusing, misleading, deceiving attackers. We obfuscate the attack surface. We hide the most critical resources. And we confuse the attackers. Through cyber defense, through cyber deception, also we try to slow down the attack, to increase the cost of the adversary, to increase the effort required by the adversary to succeed in attacking, and we gather intelligence about the attack and help preventing similar attacks in the future. So to go deeply with the concept of cyber deception, let's first explain how an attack is conducted. I refer here to the cyber kill chain, which is very famous. The cyber kill chain describes an attack as 7 phases. The attacker starts by doing reconnaissance. He should first locate a vulnerable system and identify the weaknesses. Then he constructs he built the malicious program, the malware, or even he configures an existing malware to exploit the vulnerability. Then he delivers the malware to the victim using, for example, phishing attacks. Once the malware is downloaded on the victim machine, it will exploit the vulnerability, and it will also install additional tools to totally control the victim machines. Then the victim machine will become controllable by the attacker, and it can laterally move inside the affected network and participate in conducting further attacks, usually more sophisticated attacks such as denial of service. So to provide deception, we have to impact all these different phases. We can lie, providing false data. We can misdirect the attacker request. We can divert connection. We can deceive the attacker by providing false response to the exploitation of vulnerabilities. We can obfuscate, we can disrupt, we can delay the requests that arrive from the attacker. So deception has started maybe 20 years ago with the concept of honeypots, and then it showed over the last year significant improvement. So deception started with using honeypots. Honeypots are types of security measures whose value lies in being probed. So there are some systems that we deploy vulnerably, and we try to attract attacks to these systems called honeypots. The objective is to gather intelligence about the attackers and mitigate the risk. The honeypot can be low interaction, high interaction, real system, virtual machines. And one of the most challenging tasks is finding a manner by which these honeypots will be deployed on the system. Because at the same time, we want to attract the attackers, and at the same time, we want to limit the effect of the attack to prevent attackers from propagating their successful attacks to other legitimate systems. We can deploy honeypot such as in a form of isolated system. We obtain what is called sacrificial lamp. We can deploy them into a subnet, and we obtain what we call hacker zoo. We can have several honeypots that we place in front of the critical resources to form the first stage of the target, and we call it minefield. We can have honeypot placed near the production system, and we speak about proximity decoys. And we can have also honeypots that appear on production system through poor redirection, and we speak about redirection shield. Here is one example of honeypot deployment architecture. So the objective here is to attract attack to honeypot application. We deploy two instances of application, one regular application or service, and a shadow application called shadow honeypot. When the traffic comes to the target, we start by filtering, and then we try to perform anomaly detection. So if we find that the traffic is malicious, we redirect it to the shadow honeypot. At the same time, the shadow honeypot is sharing its state with the regular application. And we call for state synchronization because when a session starts, it can be legitimate, and during the session, the attacker shows malicious behavior. So we need always to continuously synchronize the states between the two applications. And when an attack succeeds to be executed on the target, we can roll back to the safe state. And the intelligence gathered from the shadow honeypot are used to update rules on the filtering component or on the anomaly detection solution or sensors. However, attackers are aware of the existence of honeypots and want to make sure that they are not in front of real honeypots before they advance in the attack scenario. So attackers want to identify honeypots, and for that reason we call for the use of fingerprinting technique. They can check timing or behavior discrepancies in responding to bad packets. They can examine response by creating specially crafted packets. They can check also whether the compromised system can successfully be used to send attacks to other systems on the network. And to identify honeypots, attackers call for the use of machine learning. Here is an architecture used by attackers, which is based on the combination of different classification models, ensemble learning approach. The attacker tries to extract fields from the application level, network level, or system level. And also, attackers call for the use of existing search engine, such as Shodan, for example, which is able to identify existing honeypots. And the data are collected and then used as input to the classification model. And then through binary classification, we can detect if it is an honeypot or not. The concept of honeypot has evolved to the concept of honey tokens. And honey tokens now represent any digital entity that can be placed anywhere in the network. They are simple to deploy, they are cost effective, and they are used to trigger alert if they are accessed by the attacker. And the honeypot, one of their major advantages is that they put uncertainty of whether and where honey tokens are placed, because we can place them anywhere, and therefore the attacker are faced with great uncertainty. So to deploy honeypots, we can call for the use of machine learning, deep learning, deep reinforcement learning, in order to optimize their location and attract to the maximum possible the attackers. Example of honey tokens, we can have, for example, bogus profiles deployed on configured on social networks. We can have decoy hyperlinks in web pages. Links are invisible to human but visible to automated programs. We can have, for example, decoy traffic injected into the network with false credential data. We can have fake passwords registered, saved in fake configuration files, and so on. Even if we put several types of honey tokens with an intelligent manner, if we don't make our system dynamics, then the system will, then the attacker will succeed later in identifying the different types of stored honey tokens. So we need to make our system constantly evolving, and that's why we call now for the use of moving target defense. So the idea is to create a constantly evolving attack surface for the protected network to remain resilient against attacks. We randomize the network component to reduce the likelihood and lifetime of successful attack, and we force attackers to spend more time, more effort to study the system, to locate the vulnerabilities, and to exploit them. The idea of moving target defense can be based on IP obfuscation. network address space randomization. I will try to go quickly. OS obfuscation to defend against OS fingerprinting. We can also create dynamics in address space, in memory address space to defend against malware and memory corruption. We can create software dynamics to prevent the exploitation of application of application vulnerabilities. I will go with some examples. Here is a system that calls for the use of different classifiers, and the selection of the classifier is done randomly. Why? Because the attacker may succeed in creating attacks that are able to mislead the classification model. So we keep using randomly the different models that are available in the network. And the selection is not fully random. We can call for the use of game theory to perform strategic selection of the classification model. Another example of moving target defense. Here we have an application compiled with a specific compiler. We create different choke points. At every choke point, we can move the application from one operating system to another. So we have in the network different types of operating system, and when the application is executed, it is constantly moved from one system to another. And the period of execution in one operating system should be less than the period required for the attack to succeed. Now, having different just 1 minute. Okay. Having different deception techniques, we will not continue in using only one deception. We will organize the deception into different layers and use different deception techniques simultaneously. And this allows us to come to the concept of deception in depth. So we organize in the network different deception mechanisms and try to disperse, try to put these deceptions on the network system, software, and data. So here is an example. We put on the network honey people, deceptive people profile, honey files, honey servers, honey databases, honey table, honey data. These honey tokens are distributed with intelligent manner, and all of them will forward the data to an analyst server, which concentrates the data, do the correlation, and detect the attack profile. Okay, I come to the conclusion. The deception is now benefiting from the virtualization, from the SDN technologies. It benefits from this technology because they allow automation, they allow orchestration, and therefore we can deploy a very scalable deception system. Deception techniques must be carefully maintained to stay effective for a long period. Currently, we are seeing the development of innovative deception platforms. We are also seeing the appearance of the concept deception as a service. These systems call for an extensive use of machine learning and game theory in order to provide intelligent and strategic selection and deployment of the deception mechanism on the network. And the different test bed and the experimentation platforms will constitute an ideal environment for finding the optimal composition of the different deception building blocks in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. This is very important, the problem of security. I think that we need to focus more in open science, in the problem of security. There is a number that interpelled me is the increase in number of attacks, 300% in COVID period. So they have nothing to do in the home, so they start attacking other systems. Now we will go to Mr. Abdelhakim Shatawi, who is going to speak about the infrastructure. Abdelhakim, don't tell everything about the CCK. This is a problem of security.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Youssef. للأسف حضرت presentation in French, but I will try to speak some English, some Arabic to present my presentation, and I will be very quickly to do some presentation. This is the CCK. It's presented by our director, Madame Sausan. I pass this also. This is the bandwidth in our network. This is the evolution of the bandwidth ولا تطور نتاع la bande passante ولا bandwidth in RNU ولا in our NREN. تقريبا هو it double every 4 years. We started with the dedicated line, after that with ADSL, and now till 2011 and 18 it will be all in fiber optical. This is our backbone. It's divided in 2 parts. The first part is the connection part. It's provided by Tunisia Telecom. It's our provider of connection, and we pay the connection, reserved connection. The second part is the internet part. It's with the operator Orange, and we pay with the used bandwidth. We have a connection about 20 gig in the backbone side and the internet side, and there are some other connection with the GEAN, with the ASREN, with the POP of ASREN in London, directly with 1 gigabit per second, just to highlight this point, because all the researchers, they can do her research or her video conferencing from the institute, because it will be very benefit for him, because there are a connection, a layer 2 connection, and it's very speed to use this connection. Is dedicated to the research and to the communication with other researchers. This is a very technical, just to highlight that the connection with the institutes is OSPF, and with the internet is a BGP connection, and all of these are secure by next generation firewall to provide the security. This is the bandwidth for all the institute in Tunisia. We can have about now 414 fiber connection, and the total bandwidth can rush 34 gigabit per second. We provide 20 line with 1 gigabit per second to the campus network, and the pairing is with 20 gigabit per second, and it's with SLA. It's a diamond SLA. It can be, it must start restarted or return to functional in 2 hours. This is our bandwidth used. This used bandwidth, it's in the start of this year. It's about 10 gigabit per second. 10 gigabit per second. It's used bandwidth now in our network. This is I passed this. Just to highlight it here is a project, this one is a campus network. We prepare this project is to connect 12 campus with about 85 institutes that will be connected in the fiber network. It's, and we provide a Wi-Fi connection for all this campus. This one, just security, we provide next generation firewall, antiviral solution, VPN solution, WAF and load balancing. This is Facebook cache. It's deployed in our data center in Manuba. This is the monitoring and supervision, and now we have we focus in the SOC. Is Sumaya present here? He started to put our SOC. First step to put a SOC because it is necessity to put the SOC. This is some training do it part of the CCK in 2018 and so 2019 and 20, and it stopped now because of the COVID-19. To do a capacity building and to help the administrator in the institute to develop his competence in networking and in security. This is another project is to do ISO 27001 is information security management system. It's now started this project to certify the CCK as ISO. This is the management of the data center in the CCK. It's 16 rack with 24 units. It provides everything like cooling, like electricity, everything is hot mode disponible. Yeah, it's high available. And now we start to put the second data center is El Manar. This is the picture of our data center. This is the cooling, electricity. This is our equipment in the data center. We have 2 core network, 4 aggregation switch. It's active switch. We have firewalling, EPS, WAF, VPN solution. This is another project. It's a cloud project. It's an open source platform. It's provided in the CCK. This is the interface and this is the console. We can provide for some student or some test things to do some test in the cloud. It's now operational and it's functional. It's based on OpenStack, OpenShift, and Terraform to manage all of this. This is the platform hardware. In this is deployed our cloud. Is 3 controller, 9 computing, 3 storage node, distributed node, and bit stockage or storage. The connection is 10 gigabit per second and the FC for the storage things. This is the resource that will be in this started cloud. It's about 720 vCPU. We can, of course, add more IP addresses or more bandwidth to this platform. This is the platform. Infrastructure as a service is okay. Load balancer as a service is okay. VPN as a service, database as a service, and PaaS is now the cloud team is working to deploy these services in these platforms. This is the new platforms, like Mr. Yusuf is said. It's a new project. We prepare this project to put more resources to all the institute or all the university to use it. It's about 500 virtual CPU to deploy this in the CCK. Hope in the end of this year it will be functional. Hope. This is the platform. This is the platform, material platform to this. This is also, we provide to do 25 gigabit per second connection, 32 for the storage things, and pass to 100 gigabit per second. And the technology is spine and leaf to do switching in this cloud. Maybe I have more time, or just to highlight the challenge of the security, because Mr. Slim is presented. The cybercrime is increasing about 10% each year. You can pass through this link to show the attack. They affect all the major constructors like Facebook, like Twitter, like all the biggest one, Yahoo, all the biggest one, they are affected by the attacks. The second is the problem in the security is the detection of that you are victim of attack. It takes 211 days to detect that you are victim of attacks. This is the biggest challenge. The second challenge to eliminate or to return in the normal state, it will be take 54 days. The problem of cloud, public, private, they add more complexity. Encrypted malware, because now all the traffic, they are encrypted. Also, rapid change of the equipment. There are a lot of equipment every day. The society that they have a lot of equipment, like in the CCK, router, switching, firewall, servers, WAF, load balancing, they do the job very difficult to manage. The resistance of changing in the employee that don't want to change. To keeping a very good staff is also a difficult thing, and for all this reason, to the problem that you must plan or do the security when you're starting, not to add the security and I stop here because my presentation is so long. I stop to put the. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdel Hakim. This is very important. The question is, our infrastructure, is it ready for the open science? So maybe we will answer later to those questions. We have a presentation from Mr. Erico Porto from an online presentation. Do you hear me, Erico?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can start.
Okay, so let me share my presentation, and please tell me if you can see it.
Yes.
Is it showing to you?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I'm Erico Porto from Brazil, right? I'm very glad to be here and to be able to do that presentation. And I'm going to talk a little about the cloud services that we have been developing and working for ASREN, and for our constituents during the last 3 years of the AC3 project. So this is the topology of the network. Abdel Hakim already talked about that, but I like to start with that slide just to show the perspective, a diagram of our connections. So we have our big nodes, our big point of presence in London, at the city of the Council of Slough. And in the last year, we have been working to establish those links that we have today, 1 gig links connecting Tunisia, Marwan, Morocco, and the Sesame Institute in Jordan. We also have a connection with AUB, with Lebanon, but that connection is not a real link. It's a VPN over the internet. And we have a little point of presence established in Jordan inside the SESAM institution to connect and also to provide some basic services. We participate on several groups that collect statistics and provide information about worldwide connectivity. So we have some probes installed in Jordan to do some to collect some statistics about the connectivity between Jordan and the rest of the world. So this is our the equipment that we installed on the London port. By the beginning of the project, when we started by the end of July 2020, we had 2 servers installed in the equipment, as you can see on the picture on the left. So we have a small server that we are going to use internally, for test beds and for prototypes of applications and services that we are planning to install for ASREN. And we acquired a big server with lots of storage and capacity in order to build our tools, the network management tools, basically, and some other internal services that we might need. And it was not our intention in the beginning of the project to develop a cloud infrastructure, but it makes sense when we started to virtualize that infrastructure that we've acquired and to deploy our services using virtual machines. And because we also provided a workshop, a training on federated identities, and we used that infrastructure, we used some available resources to create virtual machines to the trainees and to the instructors. So we saw the potential, to have some pool of resources available to provide virtual machines, not only to the NRENs, but to researchers in general, if they want. And because of that, by the end of May 2021, the picture on the right, you see that we've acquired another server and we upgraded the first big server that we had. So today, our infrastructure has a lot of capacity installed. So this is the capacity of the ASREN Cloud hardware. So we have two big servers with a number of virtual CPUs and a lot of memory and storage available. And now we are also in the process of upgrading the small server. The small server that we acquired was intended initially for test beds and prototypes, but because of a request that we received, we started a procurement process this year to upgrade this small server to add more CPUs and more memory, more storage, right, and also put that server as part of the pool of resources for virtual machines. But the icing of the cake is we acquired also 2 NVIDIA GPUs. So the idea here is to have VMs with GPU capacities, graphic processing units capacity to provide to the researchers and to the NRENs. So the GPUs, they are elements that are more powerful than the traditional CPUs that you have in computers. The graphic processing units, they provide a better way for you to create applications that use parallel computing. So they have much better it's much more powerful to do much more efficient than the general purpose CPUs in order to process blocks of data in parallel. It's usually used for rendering complex 3D animations and graphics. This is mostly used in the traditional video producing industrialization. But now, you know, the researchers, they realize that the GPUs, they are very capable for artificial intelligence and to do very complex parallel computing. So that's why we decided, because it was a request from the researchers, we decided to do that upgrade, and it's planned to be installed by November this year. And we are going to have also this small server with more capacity and the GPUs installed. So we are going to be able, ASREN is going to be able to provide virtual machines with GPU capability to the users. Our infrastructure, our cloud infrastructure works like that. We have the pool of resources. Here we have all our 3 servers connected to the switch, we have in the point of presence in London. And those resources, each one of those servers, they have an hypervisor installed. ESXi is an hypervisor that gets the control over the storage and the CPUs, the virtual CPUs, and all the hardware elements that you have in that machine, and allows you to create the virtual machines and deploy those virtual machines inside the hardware. And although all that infrastructure is in fact allows ASREN to provide infrastructure as a service. This is the model. The traditional, the most common cloud service that we have available today are those 2 types of service: platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, or software as a service. And the difference between those 3 models is what is under the control of the user. Usually, the users, when they don't want to have control over the hardware infrastructure, or if they don't want to mess and to change and to operate at the operating system level, if they just want to use some kind of application, they usually tend to be more to the side of software as a service. Platform as a service is more related to the application and the data that you use and you provide over cloud. We, in ASREN, we do not provide platform as a service, not software as a service, but we provide infrastructure as a service. So what we do is we deploy a virtual machine and make that virtual machine available to the client to install whatever operating system they want and to install whatever applications they want on top of that operating system. And the way that we allow that to be managed by the customer is through our vCenter server. The vCenter server is a software that we acquired the license that sees all those, this pool of resources as just, you can manage all those pool of resources centralized. So we have a big platform, a big platform that we can use, to manage all that infrastructure, and very quickly we can deploy a virtual machine using all the resources that are pulled together by the vCenter server, and make that machine available to the customer, to the user. So this is a view of the vCenter server, of the vCenter software. Through this web page, using a web page, we can check all the virtual machines that are created on the infrastructure, on the cluster, on the data center that we have in Zulu. And we can have console access to the machine. So it's possible for us to create a user, to add a user to this platform and give that user access to the virtual machine so they can have full control. You are going to access your virtual machine as if you were sitting in front of it and doing installation. If you have the hardware by your side, and you're doing the installation of the software in that hardware using the keyboard and your mouse from a console. So you can do all the installation, and after the VM is installed, you can also have access to that VM using the console. So the console makes it very easy for the user to manipulate and have full control over the operating system and the software that is going to be installed on that virtual machine. The next slide is to give you an overview of how things are set up on the architecture. So we have the virtual machines. They are all the hardware is connected to that switch, the switch that we have in the point of presence. And the switch is connected to the internet, is connected to the worldwide of research and education through routing. So all the VMs, in fact, they are connected to the switch through the hardware. But we put the VMs behind a firewall. So this firewall is to protect the virtual machine. So all virtual machines that we can provide to the users, they are going to be behind a virtual firewall. But they are in fact connected to the switch, and they have 10 gig ports available for communicating with the internet. So the potential of the router switch system, of the capacity of the system is up to 10 gig. We have 10 gig ports available and use and connecting to internet commodities and also to research and education. The way that we allow communication over the internet is through a private IPv4 and public IPv6. Because IPv6 is not a problem, we can use public IPv6 on the virtual machines. This is done via DHCP. So the DHCP is configured to provide, once you install your operating system, it's going to come up with, it's going to receive the correct IPv4 and IPv6 address. The communication between the virtual machines through the firewall is done on the case of IPv4 using network address translation. In the case of IPv6, address translation is not necessary because the IPv6 that you are going to receive on your virtual machine is already a public IPv6 address. We just have to configure the firewall to allow some traffic. So we are going to allow basically all types of traffic, but this has to be negotiated between the user of the virtual machine and ASREN. Basically, we are going to allow SSH and the basic protocols for internet access and also for email. We are not going to allow, for instance, people from on the virtual machine to deploy a mail transfer agent. We are not going to do that because of the risk of having a mail transfer agent send spam from ASREN resources. So that is not going to be allowed. But it's possible for people that want to install a mail transfer agent to use some kind of relay, of mail relay service that is readily available over the internet. But other than that, whatever application that you want to be available over the internet can be done through the public IPv4 or through the public IPv6 access, just needing to do a request to ASREN, and we are going to configure the firewall for you. We're still working on the terms of service. We still have some issues that we need to decide. So this is the overall architecture of this implementation, on how we are planning. This is already in place, is already working, so VMs can be deployed upon request from users and researchers. We can do that. Also, if the NREN wants to do some test bed, wants to test some application and make that application available for their constituents, we can also provide that. We can also install some virtual machines for that. But we need to be careful with some aspects, especially in terms of security, because also it's important to realize that once you give full control over a virtual machine, over the operating system to a user, he can do whatever he wants. So he can use that virtual machine to launch attacks on the internet and to launch all sorts of, explore all sorts of vulnerabilities. And this is going to come from inside ASREN resources. So we need to be very careful with that, with what we allow. That's why we set up this virtual firewall, because we need to have some control over what the virtual machine can do in order to avoid, damage, and in order to avoid liability to ASREN as well. We have to be mindful also regarding privacy and backup, because of the today people are very concerned about privacy and personal data, and how that personal data can be exploited and can be breached or using the internet. And we have several laws and several frameworks that foster how to protect that information. So we in ASREN, we are not going to do a tight, with respect to privacy and to backup, we are not going to do that. We are not going to provide that as a service, because if we provide a VM, the user has full control over what it does on that virtual machine. And we in ASREN, we are not going to, let's say, provide backup services for that virtual machine. So the user needs to be mindful and to be careful with how they are going to handle their private information and how they are going to handle backup of the service, if that service is important for them. So they need to take care of that. So we still work on the terms of service, because we need to make clear that we are not going to provide protection. So if the user decides to install and to put some private data on that virtual machine that they are using, they need to be mindful on how to protect that private information. So they need to think about the structure of the virtual machine that they are implementing, and thinking about the privacy and the backup of that service, if that's important for the user. Okay, so that's basically the model that we imagine, the architecture that we imagine in order to be able to provide those services. And those are open questions. We are still discussing that internally, but anyway, the service is available on that basis for the moment. This is going to evolve in the future, of course, and we are open to suggestions, and we are open, of course, to some collaboration in that sense. But that is a very embryonic service that we are experimenting and we are trying. And later we are planning also to see how we can integrate, that infrastructure with some more professional cloud provider services. Maybe we have been analyzing, we have been in conversation with cloud providers, and we saw that there is the possibility to integrate the infrastructure that we have with some cloud provider, big cloud provider, service provider, in order for us to be able to also give, let me go back, so we can also be able in the future maybe to provide platform as a service and software as a service together with infrastructure as a service that we have today. Okay, so this is a little example of what we did. We used that infrastructure to provide a workshop of information security. And it was good because we provided a virtual machine to each one of the trainees. So we had something like 30 trainees in this workshop, and we provided one VM virtual machine to each one of the trainees. They were able to access those virtual machines and do the labs, the hands-on labs on those machines. Those machines, they were behind a firewall. They were in the same architecture that I showed you in the previous slide. So this is the presentation, and if you have any questions, I can answer them now.
Thank you, Mr. Errico. This shows the importance and the level of investment of ASREN in their cloud, and I think they continue to invest. So maybe we have time for no more than 2 quick questions. So do you have questions for our guests? Yes? Can you help me with the mic?
Test. Thank you. I have a question to Professor Slim. I know that honeypot and honey token, there is some open source solution which is used generally in test network separately to the firewall, just to have information of behavior of attacker. And my question is there any solutions, firewall commercial solutions in firewalls which integrates honeypots and firewalls which to work together to block attackers to get inside the production networks?
A very quick answer.
Thank you for the question. Most recent next generation firewalls include modules that can emulate or integrate decoy services, DNS sync, for example, to which malicious traffic will be redirected to observe what the attackers are doing and collect intelligence, collect data about their behavior. But now we are seeing the release of innovative deception platforms based on the deployment of tokens with a dynamic manner. And these tokens are constantly moving from one system to another, and they are orchestrated. So we call for the use of moving target defense with orchestration, with deception in depth, with intelligence and automation.
Another question? If you have no more questions, maybe we can go to the coffee break, or the coffee break. So lunch now. So maybe we have another session with Madame Belaid next to after the coffee break. So I will give you 15 minutes, and I thank all our guests. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you.